What's so good about it?
Well, my air conditioner's working. It wasn't working. I didn't have a problem with it, but that's good. You know,
That's true. That's a real good thing.
so far there's no water pipes leaking in my front yard. I've had that twice in the last couple of weeks.
We have power.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of good stuff. You just have to look for it.
Where do you have to look, Dottie?
Huh?
Where do you have to look?
Everywhere.
And know what you're looking for, huh?
That helps, yes. Excuse me.
The dog's entertaining us in the closet.
Yeah. Whenever we come in here, I open the closet right here and the dog go in there and lay on the floor.
Oh, okay.
And now the little one, whenever she has a bone that she doesn't want the big one to get, she waits for me to open the closet.
That's her hiding place. Huh? Well, Rosalie always leaves their locker doors open if there's going to be lightning and thunder.
Oh yeah, she had told me that. That's where Misty hides.
Yes, he doesn't like the lightning or the thunder. She goes to the closets.
Yeah, our big one doesn't like it. The little one doesn't really care, but the big one doesn't like the lightning. Are they both in there? No. What you doing, Ding Ding?
Thought she wanted to get under the cover, but she just
No. What you doing?
I lifted the cover. She ran out the door.
Sit down and behave. You want to see the people? Yeah, see the people?
Do we have a new time for class?
I don't know. We might. I don't know. I wasn't told about a new time.
Thought we were running late.
We could mess him up and tell him we were on chapter 30.
That's right. We read ahead before he got here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Devious minds.
He'd probably catch on.
Mm.
Oh, no, there is a chapter 30. I was going to say, I don't think there's a chapter 30.
Hey, Zach.
Maybe I should call him.
Well, I tell you what, I fell asleep. I just woke up about half an hour ago when Aunt Gilda called me, so maybe his eyes got heavy too.
It happens, let me tell you.
Hopefully it's nothing with Misty.
Oh. Little dog.
He's trying to get in right now. He's working on it,
Okay.
whatever that means.
Tippy toes. Tippy toes? Tippy toes. Oh, goodness.
Well, excuse me. Hi, Zach. Am I host yet?
Not yet. 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, how could you be co-host?
I actually was working on trying to find images, and I found some, and I was putting them in.
You should be
I'm
good.
not past me. Okay, good. I know. Now, let me just keep this thing up. There. That's the one I'm looking for.
We're on chapter 24, I think.
Share. Okay, there we go. Okay, can everybody see that?
No,
Very distant. But you can see the terrain.
Okay, can you all see the slides?
no.
Yeah, it's small, but yeah.
Oh yeah, the pictures will be small.
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do about that. I think I can do something with that. Well, let us open with prayer. Again, Heavenly Father, as we come before your throne of grace, abide with us and help us and teach us. As we're going through this whole thing with David, there are things we can begin to understand, particularly the terrain he's in and what's going on, how he's living. And it gives us an idea of what he was up against, the world of Saul and David. But it also helps us to realize things really haven't changed that much. We're all caught in the same problem. We do the same things. Teach us and guide us, Father. And so we understand in your Son's name, we are forgiven. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. What I did was get some pictures of this whole thing. And let's see now. Yeah, this is one. I don't know if, let's see what I can do with this. I think I can. Whoops. Now this one's got to go back.
Mhm.
And let's see. Just give me a second on this one here. Edit. No, let's see. I'll push it back.
Okay.
Let's take this one because it is the first one. All of these pictures are the pictures of Judah and what it's like.
Oh, there.
No, that's what it looks like. That's where he would be.
Oh, okay. In the wilderness.
Now, if I can do what I can't do what I want to do. No, don't worry. I'll get it there. There we go.
There you
Go 1, 2. This is the wilderness of Ziph they were talking about.
go. Okay. Oh, boy.
No,
Not very pretty.
that's a nice place.
Yeah.
You remember the old cowboy movies that were always going through there shooting at each other?
Yeah.
It looks like the Grand
Hiding
Canyon.
up here.
Small scale.
Yeah. Okay, let's get that back down. And this one, here's another one of it.
Gee, that's not the kind of terrain I like.
Let's see now. I got to pull it out away from there. These others are going to come in. Okay, why is it going to? That was the first one I put up. Give you some idea. That's the wilderness he's talking about.
Mhm.
And if I put everything back the way it was, there we go.
Eesh.
At least we have some idea where he's at there. I had to look for that. And that is really the wilderness. That's the wilderness where he was.
Chapter 24, as far as I know.
And that was 23. 24, I don't have the images for yet.
Okay. No, it's fine.
David spares Saul in the cave.
Saul in life.
I do have a picture of that one, but I didn't get it up yet.
Don't worry.
And we can begin if I get my whole thing set up here. I should have had it all set up, but being who I am, I don't come to it.
We understand.
24. Well, I'm not sure.
We
I'm not sure I understand all the time, but it's worth a try. We're not on 2 Samuel. We're moving on to 2 Samuel.
First Samuel 24.
And that's what I'm doing. Gotta
Would you like to read from my big print?
get my sheet. Well, I got my Bible right over here somewhere.
You could
Where is my
read
Bible?
print. Oh, I don't know. Oh, here.
Oh, there it is over
This
there.
is it. You want
Yeah.
this? You want this?
Yeah,
Here.
that's what I want. 28.
Here.
No, there.
We have a little to that one here.
Well, not having fingerprints.
Right.
I am going between 27 and 29.
We're on 24.
We're on 24.
Are we? Is that right?
No, we're on 24, right? Or what?
Oh, we're right out. Was
Yeah,
that the last one?
24.
Okay, and then we start. Now, this one here, David is in the cave in En-Gedi. Now, I do have a picture of that, but I didn't get it up there yet.
Okay.
And that's my fault. I should have been more punctual. I
That's all right.
was doing things that I felt like doing and not what I should have been doing. Okay, then we start on 24. And it came to pass, when Saul had returned from following the Philistines, that it was told him, saying, Behold, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi. Now, that's what it would look like. That's the wilderness of Judah. It's going to be En-Gedi, right up in that area.
I'm sure. Mhm.
Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to seek David and his men upon the rocks of the wild goats. Now, you saw those. You know, if we go to rocks of the wild goats, I don't know if I think I have that. That's going to be much. Probably this is going to be something like this one here.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you see where my cursor is. It's going to be more like that one.
Mm.
Because they're going to be the wild goats and everything. It could be this. There's another picture I could have gotten, but I didn't. That might have been a little more reliable. Do you want to teach?
Not me.
Okay, then let me go.
I just touched it.
I know, I'm teasing.
Yeah.
But anyway, and he came to the sheepcotes by the way. There was a cave, and when he came to the sheepcotes, by the way, that's where he kept the sheep from these. There was a cave, and Saul went in to cover his feet, and David and his men remained in the sides of the cave. Now, you know, if you read this, to cover his feet, you get no idea what that actually means.
I have it in my Bible if I can look
But
at it.
if you go to the bathroom, you got to take down your pants, and it covers your feet. That's what they're talking about. So it's getting used to the politeness of the Bible when they wrote it, what they wanted to say and they didn't want to say. And so this is what happens. And the men of David said unto him, Behold, the day of which the Lord said unto thee, Behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thy hand, that thou mayest do to him as it should seem good unto thee. Do you remember somebody who was doing something like this before? We read about stabbed the king, stabbed him in the belly. This is the same kind of a thing, only it was the other one was in the palace. It was in Judges, the book of Judges.
Can't remember if we did it.
Now, I'm just going to run by that one, but say, okay, this is another time now he's been caught, and they said, okay, you can, now's the time to begin. He's in your hands. And the men of David said unto him, I'll read this again because I didn't finish the whole thing. Behold, the day of the Lord said unto thee, Behold, I will deliver thine enemy into thine hand, that thou mayest do to him as it shall seem good unto thee. Then David arose and cut off the skirt of Saul's robe privily, secretly. Just took the skirt off of it. And it came to pass afterward that David's heart smote him, because he had cut off Saul's skirt. And he said unto his men, The Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master. The Lord anointed to stretch forth the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, saying, he is the anointed of the Lord. See what's going on with David. There's an interesting thing going on. And when you all were asking about the narrated communion service, as I put that together, I realize, and when we put these things together, the pastors all said the same thing. We get a lot more of them than I think that people do, because we have to go through the services, and the services for us going through that is a lot different than the parishioners sitting in the pews. They're going to get up and sit down and carry it all on, but we have to follow the rules on it, not the rules, but the process of it. And there's actually there's a reality to it that the parishioners don't necessarily get. This is what David's actually talking about. You see, he's got Saul in a place where he can kill him. But then he goes, wait, this is the Lord's anointed. So it's not my place. If the Lord wants to remove him, the Lord has to do it, not me. And so this is what he's going. See, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing unto my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth mine hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord. So David stayed his servants with these words, and suffered them not to rise against Saul. But Saul rose up out of the cave and went on his way. See, he didn't even know what happened.
Right.
Had no idea what happened there. He just went in, relieved himself, and now he left. David also rose afterward and went out of the cave and cried. See, now you can imagine Saul's men are back there somewhere. They're watching as he's gone into the cave to relieve himself. Now he's going to come out and go towards his men. Well, once he's gone there, he's on his way. David now steps out of the cave and calls to Saul. David also rose afterward and went out of the cave and cried up to Saul, saying, my lord the king. And when you can imagine the startled look Saul would have. And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth and bowed himself in obeisance. See, this is also, when we talk about this word worship, this is what the worship means. The Lord God of Israel. Okay, let me just go back. I seem to have skipped more than one page. Yes, I did. Okay, I think I cut it. Yes. And David said to Saul, wherefore hearest thou men's words, saying, behold, David seeketh thy hurt. Behold, this day thine eyes have seen how that the Lord had delivered thee today into mine hand in the cave. And some bade me kill thee, but mine eyes spared thee. And I said, I will not put forth mine hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. See, there's not much Saul's going to be able to do with that. Now, if you think of that kind of relationship that David has, the whole thing behind David was God didn't want him to do it. He felt it. God anointed this guy, so God is going to have to take him out. He doesn't want him there. It's not David's place. Now, most of us would have thought, well, he's anointed, David's king. That's the thing to do. So this is what I was trying to talk about when I was in the sermon today. I'm not sure I communicated, is that we have to, when we're doing something, to look at it through the eyes of the Lord and what is the best thing. And when you have a situation like this, it seems rather difficult on our part because we think, well, he wants us to do the job. And I had to build the ark. But in this particular case, David is saying, no, the Lord made him king. So the Lord's and I have been anointed king. But I'm not going to be king until the Lord removes him. See, Jonathan would be king if it wasn't for David. And so what he's saying, Jonathan would be the next king. And he would have to wait for his father and do it till his father died. But not that he dispatched him. One of the interesting things I found out, and I've often wondered about this, having studied it, if you follow the play Hamlet, there's a lot of discussion goes on a play of Hamlet, and it's amazing. The people really don't understand these plays. You have to read them more than once. Even Romeo and Juliet is not the story about young lovers because they made some mistakes along the way. What it is about the hatred that people have and how it even overwhelms love.
Mhm.
And with Hamlet, you find out when the father comes out as a ghost, he has said what has happened, that he's overthrown the king, and now Hamlet's going to be king after him. Well, wait a minute. This is exactly the story. The same thing here, where Hamlet's father felt, okay, I'll take the man out, and he did. What happened? God took the whole family of Hamlet's family out, including Hamlet, and at the end turns it over to the king's son,
Yeah.
the dead king's son.
After all those murders.
See, so all of that, when you're watching what's going, as you watch the play unfold, they're trying to figure out Hamlet. But if you understand, wait, God is behind this, and he actually isn't Shakespeare,
Mhm.
that he's determining everything that's going to happen. And the end comes out, we go one way with it, but if you actually follow it, you realize, wait a minute, and there's so much proof on that. The fact that everybody dies, it's a Greek tragedy. That's what Shakespeare wrote.
Yeah.
You realize, wait, this is the only way. And this is what David has realized when his, verse 11. Moreover, my father, see the skirt of thy robe in my hand. For in that I cut off the skirt of thy robe and killed thee not. Know thou and see that there is neither evil nor transgression in my hand, and I have not sinned against thee. Yet thou huntest my soul to take it.
Whoa, that's pretty cutting. Yeah, told
Now a couple of things here. Notice David does not have 3,000 men with him. 300, I think it was, or 600. And yet he's taking that stand firmly. Do we have that kind of faith when we're dealing with the Lord? And most of the time, no. And again, verse 14, and whom? Let's see. As saith the proverb, 13, I'm sorry. Oh, no, 12.
Excuse me.
The Lord judge between me and thee, and the Lord avenge me of thee. But mine hand shall not be upon thee. As saith the proverb of the ancients, wickedness proceedeth from the wicked, but mine hand shall not be upon thee.
Mhm.
After whom is the king of Israel come out? After whom dost thou pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea. See, David is putting himself down. One of the things, when we read this, there's one thing we miss. And I realized I saw it in one of the Jane Austen books, Pride and Prejudice. And it's one of these words that they said, it really hit me home and realized, we don't realize our own insignificance. And I mean, that's very sincere. We don't realize our own insignificance.
Mhm.
Everything swings about us. So when we're dealing around with people, it swings around us. And instead, if we realize our own insignificance, as David does, then the Lord plays a prominent role, and we watch as he begins to take over in our lives. And it's amazing how the things turn out. And that's a very difficult lesson. That's why, when I was talking about this whole thing today in the sermon, about this whole relationship of what goes on with the liturgy. The liturgy is a prayer service where we come in to bring our prayers and pray to the Lord. It's a very solemn occasion. But it's when we leave, it's a very happy occasion because the Lord heard us, we've confessed, we know we're forgiven, bang, we go out and face the world again. But we don't think like that. Most of the people come and they leave in the same way. It's hard to determine whether we go to the church for a community reason or for a personal spiritual reason. But when we begin to realize our own insignificance, then we begin to realize, well, wait a minute, the only thing we can rely on is God, and relying on him. As we begin to do that, we find out he does help us a lot more, significantly a lot more than we'd really believe. And I hope that makes a little sense, because this is what David's doing. You know, David's anointed king, but he's talking to the king as if he's only the servant of the king, and that's all he is, the servant of the king.
As long as he's walking.
And he uses as the proverb of the ancients, wickedness proceedeth from the wicked, but mine hand shall not be upon thee. After whom is the king Israel come out? After whom dost thou pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea. He's saying, and it's true, Saul has a much more significant role than David. Saul has to lead the country. David's not worth it. Saul's got too much responsibility. If 3/4, well, not even 3/4, only half of our politicians would look at their responsibility like that, we'd be a lot better off than we are. But each looks at to fulfill his own pockets. But David, realizing his own insignificance, is saying the Lord's going to take care of it. Realize that trusting is totally on the Lord. And the Lord therefore be judge, and judge between me and thee, and see and plead my cause, and deliver me out of thine hand. And it came to pass, when David had made an end of speaking these words unto Saul, that Saul said, Is this thy voice, my son David? See, he's already changed. And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. See, one of the things I think, and this is the truth about the scripture, there's a lot of things I think about when having to deal with this, because I wanted to go into ministry, I got out of it, and I started doing other things. And I've often wondered, did I make the right decision to come into the church and do what I'm doing? There's things when I think I did, there's things when I think it wasn't really worth it. But as I run through, this is where David is and what we don't realize. As you build up and you realize your own insignificance, you realize how important the Lord is. If we're insignificant, we need somebody to help us. And we then have to rely on God to do that. Now, that's not the easy thing to do. But as you begin to do that, you begin to see the action of God. He will make it very plain to you what he's doing and what not. It's not always going to be clear. I can guarantee you that. But there are going to be some times where it's going to be so clear that you cannot get around it. And this is what has happened here. David has done precisely what God wanted him to do. God has moved the heart of Saul to break down at the words of David. So what David did what he had to do, and the Lord worked on Saul and did to Saul what Saul had to do. But notice how it comes out. We're going to have to come back to this at a different time. As we go into 2, once David becomes king, then things begin to change in David's world. It's going to change because of the whole thing of power. So what is that? Saul has now lifted up his voice and wept. And he said to David, Thou art more righteous than I, for thou hast rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded thee evil. Now, see, he actually sees this. Now, as we read this, this is not something we're going to put into practice. We should, but it's going to be very difficult for us to put that into practice. As much as I talk about this whole thing, when we look at church, we had more of the people coming to church that should be in the church. The church would be fine. There'd be no problem. We wouldn't even have any kind of financial problem, even with the small group that they have. But we live in our own world, so that if you can imagine, sales here, a party here, a parade there, a chance to go to Biloxi there, all these things come in and they interfere. They're more important in our lives than God is. And so the results are going to be that way. Because if you remember what we said, and you see it in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us as we forgive others. What God does, he judges us by our own standards. And that's the one thing we don't understand. See, he judges us by our standard. How we judge others, that's how he judges us. And so when we find out we've made a mistake, we've confessed that, and we try to sincerely get over that and change, he helps us do that, even though we don't always change. But he's there to help us do that. And this is what's happening here. And thou hast showed this day that thou hast dealt well with me. For as much as when the Lord had delivered me into thine hand, thou killest me not. For if a man find his enemy, will he let him go well away? Wherefore the Lord reward thee good for that thou hast done unto me this day. Now, one thing count on. Like all of us, Saul is very sincere for the moment, but he's going to change. But notice how he speaks truth here. And it's that the thing we're looking at that makes this whole thing so interesting, but what we miss is the trust David has in the Lord to deliver him out of everything. If he's got to do right or wrong, he'll do the right thing and pray the Lord will deliver him. And that'll happen. But we're not always like that, and David's not going to be always like that. See? And on verse 20. And now behold, I know well that thou shalt surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in thine hands. Saul said it.
Or he dies. Yeah, he's going to die.
Swear now therefore unto me by the Lord, that thou wilt not cut off my seed after me, and that thou wilt not destroy my name out of my father's house. And David sware unto Saul, and Saul went home. But David and his men gat them up unto the hold, where their protection, a little fort. See, Saul has now come to the realization of what's going on. Now, this chapter here, when we get onto this is going to help us along the way.
Okay.
Because some of the main characters, we started off with Samuel. Well, Samuel's going to die. And Samuel died. And all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. See. Now remember, when we look at Samuel had trouble with his kids, just like Eli. But the Lord didn't do the same thing with Samuel that he did to Eli, because Eli didn't do anything with his kids. He let them go. But Samuel apparently tried to do the right thing. And there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel, and the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. That's not Indiana. There's a place called Carmel in Indiana. It's not the same place, though. Now the name of the man was Nabal. Now watch what's going to come out of this. You will see a connection here. And the name of his wife, Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding and of beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. Now see, Caleb, all of these, what you're watching and what's important here, if you remember Caleb was a good guy for years. But he's got a bad son, a grandson, a great-grandson, probably more than a great-grandson.
Joshua and Caleb.
But yeah, Joshua and Caleb. But he's got a lemon here. But he married a good woman. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men. And David said unto the young men, Get you up to Carmel and go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house. and peace be unto all that thou hast. See, what he's saying, David's offering him, he's saying, peace be unto you.
So what, it's a,
He's just telling him no problem. He's not going to do anything wrong. They're going up. He wants him to know this is not, they're not going to try to steal anything or anything like that. And
7.
he will continue.
7.
And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the while they were in Carmel. See, David said, our army was all around and we were all there. We never bothered you at all. We never took any of your sheep, nothing. In fact, we protected them. Ask the young men, and they will show thee. Wherefore let the young men find favor in your eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants and to thy son David.
I don't understand that.
What you don't understand about it?
I mean, what about that?
What he's saying, he said, okay, we
What
would
does he want him to go there for?
watch. He sends them, they need supplies.
Oh, he wants supply.
They need supplies. And he says, we were here the whole time.
They need
And we
food.
didn't have anything. We didn't
Okay.
take anything from you, but we do have a need now.
Okay.
So out of the goodness of your heart, what you think you can afford to do,
Okay.
why don't you help? Please help us. We need the
Okay.
help. Now, you remember, if you go
Oh,
into
yeah.
this,
Right now.
you know, what God is always saying, help the helpless. When you see somebody hungry, feed them. You know, hospitality, this is it. But he's wealthy.
Mhm.
And, you know, a lot of times we don't, there are a couple of places where I've been, particularly when I was in Bellingham, I was near an Indian reservation.
Bellingham, Washington.
And at Bellingham, Washington. And it was an Indian reservation. And I was really shocked to see how these Indians lived. And that's how they chose to live. But they had refrigerator boxes, the cardboard ones. They had a couple of those hooked together, stove boxes, and they actually lived in those things. You know, they were probably as stable as the tents they were years ago.
Well, they're on the
But they
reservation.
lived, and in their reservation, that's how they wanted to live.
They didn't.
The chief had a big house and a beautiful one, and a lot of the people who were more, you had others there that were able to afford things and wanted to, but a lot of they wanted to live like that. So what he's saying is that when you have this thing like that, and if you try to help them, you can't. When you look at us, though, you know what we've been through, and look how much we have, you realize how much we actually have. I mean, I was amazed when I was at the seminary, when I was in Fort Wayne near the seminary. Every now and then we'd get a student from Kenya, or one of the African places, and they were amazed at the situation America had, and
sure.
what the African Americans in America had. They could not understand their anger.
Mhm.
You know, I'm just overwhelmed with what they have. When I go back I'm going back to a little village. See, this is this perception of who we are and perspective of who we are is very, very important. And David is saying, okay, we need help. And Nabal, who is very wealthy, should be able to go, well, okay, let's see what I can do for you. He's not going to do that.
No.
Okay. And I'm on
9.
9. And when David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all the words in the name of David and ceased. They stopped. They just said what David said.
So,
And Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David? And who is the son of David?
no, Jesse.
Who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants now days that break away every man from his master.
Oh.
See, he knows who David is.
Mhm.
But maybe he doesn't know that he's anointed. But that's not supposed to be the situation. They have a need, and David's been there with his forces and never molested him.
Mhm.
And he doesn't care. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers, and give it unto men whom I know not whence they be, where they're from? Should I share this with you? You saw the same thing in Lazarus and the rich man.
Mhm.
The rich man is very much worried about his brothers in the earth when he's in hell. But he wasn't worried at all about Lazarus. And his attitude toward Lazarus really hadn't changed in hell. So in 12, so David's young men turned their way and went again and came and told him all these sayings. And David said unto his men, gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. In other words,
Baggage.
he had, the 200 are going to stay there. So he's 400, he had 600 men with him. So they're going to go for. But the men were very good on, and one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, so long as we were conversant with them when we were in the field. See, he's saying, wait a minute, he was there. He really protected us. And our master isn't responding to that. And again, they were a wall unto us, both by day and night, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore know and consider what they will do. For evil is determined against master and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial, that a man cannot speak to him. Belial, the devil. He's such an arrogant fool. And Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine and 5 sheep all ready dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn, and 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs, and led them on asses. She had them put them up together real fast, and now she's going to bring it. And she said unto her servants, go on before me. Behold, I come unto you. But she told not her husband Nabal. And it was so, as she rode on the ass, that she came down by the covert of the hill, and behold, David and his men came down against her, and she met them. Now David had said, surely in vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him, and he hath requited me evil for good. So, and more also do God unto the enemies of David, if I leave of all that pertain to him by the morning light, any that pisseth against the wall. See, he's mad. And the thing I enjoy about the Bible, a lot of things, they're very clear on the word. I mean, we wouldn't use those kind of words. We'd use them. But when you're reading the Bible, you go, wow, that's terrible. Would they do that?
But it's very clear.
But it's exactly very clear. And when Abigail saw David, she hasteth and lighted off the ass and fell before David on her face and bowed herself to the ground and fell at his feet and said, upon me, my Lord, upon me let this iniquity be. And let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience and hear the words of thine handmaid. Let not my Lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal. For as his name is, so is he. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him. Nabal means folly.
Goodness. 25.
I know, I was just running through that. Is with him. But I, thine handmaid, saw not the young men of my Lord, not thou didst, whom thou didst send. Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, seeing the Lord hath withholden thee from coming to shed blood, and from avenging thyself with thine own hand, now let thine enemies and they that seek evil to my Lord be as Nabal, a fool. And now this blessing which thine handmaiden hath brought unto my Lord, let it even be given unto the young men that follow my Lord. I pray thee, forgive the trespass of thine handmaid, for the Lord will certainly make my Lord a sure house, because my Lord fighteth the battles of the Lord, and evil hath not been found in thee all thy days. See, she just said, this husband I've got's a fool.
Mhm.
So this is what I'm coming to help.
29.
And again, we're on 29. Yet a man is risen to pursue thee and to seek thy soul. But the soul of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of life with the Lord thy God. And the souls of thine enemies, them shall he sling out as out of the middle of a sling. That's when you get your full throw. It's got to be in the middle of a sling. So it's going to go, the whole pressure of the stone in the middle of the sling is going to have it going twice as fast and directly to its mark. And it shall come to pass when my Lord shall have done to my Lord according to all the good that he hath spoken concerning thee, and shall have appointed thee ruler over Israel. He's talking about Saul now. That this shall be no grief unto thee, nor offense of heart unto my Lord, either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my Lord hath avenged himself. But when the Lord shall have dealt with my Lord, then remember thine handmaid. See, again, you can, if you follow, what's so hard about this is she realizes her own insignificance.
Mhm.
David is her Lord. Saul is the real Lord. Her husband is her Lord. In today's world, it's very difficult to find a woman who thinks like that, or a guy who thinks like that. And this is what, as you go through this and you begin to read it and see it, you can see if we begin to understand our own insignificance, and I have to keep going there, it helps us understand the importance of the Lord and how he then directs our lives. We find out if our own insignificance, if something goes right, it's not because we did it right, but it's because God has given us the ability to do it right. Because we've made so many mistakes doing it wrong, we've got to think, well, the only reason why I did it right, something had to be different. And this is what he's talking about.
Is it 33 on?
Let's see. Yeah, I'm about 29.
29.
No, I'm just going down and looking. Yeah, 30.
Well, he talked.
Yeah, I'm going to go
down
with, yeah.
in 32.
And David said, yeah, that this shall be grief, I'm reading 31, grief unto thee, no offense of heart unto my Lord. Her husband, either that thou hast shed blood causeless, or that my Lord hath avenged him. David, both of them, himself. But when the Lord shall have dealt well with my Lord, then remember mine handmaiden. Because she knows God's going to deal with him, with her too, with this whole thing. And David said to Abigail, blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which sent thee this day to meet me. And blessed be thy advice, and blessed be thou, which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself with mine own hand. See? There's an interesting study we have, and it's one thing I enjoyed with the school. When teaching with these students, I have to begin to think differently. And I think one of the things that has been very, very helpful is that this old geezer has to work with teenagers. And I've got questions to ask and questions to answer, and they have questions in the book. And they talk about the difference between revenge and avenge, or vengeance and revenge. See, we take revenge. God is the one that takes vengeance. Vengeance is mine, I shall repay, said the Lord. But we take revenge, which means we're taking authority we don't have. Now, the problem comes in when you're dealing in a war situation. Is how their things are so different, and you can't look at it the same way. But what he's basically saying is that, and this is what David was saying, and again, you see how the Lord has stepped in. The Lord has stepped in and kept David from taking revenge. Because God said, I will take revenge. What? Oh. Oh, I know we did. I got enough in there. That's okay. I think I have another can.
No.
So I hope that makes a little sense there with what I was saying there. See, and blessed be advice, and blessed be thou which hast kept me this day from coming to shed blood, and from avenging myself
Mhm.
with mine own hand.
Mhm.
See, vengeance is mine. Avenge and revenge. Avenge is what we want to do. Revenge is when it takes place.
Mhm.
But the revenge is always sinful.
Mhm.
For in every deed, as the Lord God of Israel liveth, which hath kept me back from hurting thee, except thou hast hasted and come to meet me, surely there had not been left unto Nabal by the morning light any that pisseth against the wall. He said, nothing's going to be alive. No animals, nothing. They're all
She
going to be
hadn't
dead
come to him.
if she hadn't come. So David received of her hand that which she had brought him, and said unto her, Go up in peace to thine house. See, I have hearkened to thy voice, and have accepted thy person. And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a great feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Therefore she told him nothing, less or more, until the morning light.
Oh, wait, don't go. Mhm.
So,
30
and it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And it came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal, that he died.
What killed it there, huh? Wow.
See, there are things like this that happen in real life, but it's the Lord. The one thing finding in Judges, you find out the people, as long as they follow what the Lord wants, even though they make mistakes through all of this and they're sinning, the Lord works it out very well.
Mhm.
But when the person that they are following, they don't follow anymore, they got somebody else and they're going to go their own merry way, and they think they're know-it-all, then they end up in a big hole, and they get caught to the situation where they can't go nowhere. They're screaming back, help me, Lord. So the Lord said, okay, I'll come back. And if you think about what we had in Proverbs, where he says, I counsel you, and you don't listen. So when you get in a problem, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to laugh at you, what wisdom is saying. But here you see the opposite, as when the right thing is done, how the Lord takes revenge, and even taking Nabal's life.
Mhm.
Do you remember another story like this? Not quite the same. You don't get in that detail, but it's the same kind of a thing. It's a parable that the Lord talked about. Do you remember anything like that?
A parable?
Yeah.
Mhm. I can't think.
The rich man says, I've got all these goods. What I'm going to do, I'm going to build me my warehouses, I'm going to load it, and then I'm going to sit back and relax and enjoy it all. And you hear the Lord said, fool, tonight your soul will be required of you.
Mhm. No.
See, I think one of the hardest things for Christians to understand is that God is in control. And if he wants us to do it, he'll let us do it and take all the headache and all that goes along with it. If we let him do it, it'll always turn out right. Now, if we started by doing it ourselves, we've got to go through the consequences of that. And then he sometimes turns it right back where it should be. But the whole thing, which you're watching with David here, is a realization that David is the Lord's servant. And as a result, whatever the Lord wants, he's got to follow what the Lord wants, not what he wants. And the Lord will set the place. He's got a chance to kill Saul to become king. And say, you got it, guy, go for it. Nope, the Lord's got to take him. Then the Lord will have made me king.
So like a test for him.
All of this is a big test.
Test?
Mm-hmm. But it shows how the Lord has taken Nabal at the end. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord that had pleaded the cause of my reproach for the hand of Nabal, and hath kept his servant from evil. For the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head.
I pray that.
And David sent and communed with Abigail to take her to him to wife.
Interesting. Yeah.
See, she was there. One thing, she's a very pretty lady, but more importantly, there, she was doing what the Lord wanted her to do. And so David now, Micah has gone off on her own way, and he's going to marry now Abigail. So whenever you hear about Abigail in the Bible, you know what has happened here. There's a story of it. And she arose and bowed herself on her face to the earth and said, Behold, let thine handmaid be a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. Now you realize what she's saying there?
Really humble, huh?
But yeah, and that's true. But humility, this is where we are. She realizes her own insignificance. And so she says, I've been blessed by the Lord, so I'll be satisfied with that situation.
33.
Uh-huh.
I just turned myself on. Dear Lord.
And now 43. David also took Ahinadam of Jezreel, and they were also both of them his wives. But Saul had given Michal, his daughter and David's wife, to Phalti, the son of Laish, which was of Garlam.
Oh.
Galem. Now, how do you handle that? I don't know. He's got more than one wife. The only thing I remember, and I saw it, it really made a lot of sense. There was a movie, and this one guy was dealing with an Arab. And I found out when in Seattle, I actually found out this was really true. Not the movie necessarily, but what he said. But the guy had said, you've got to realize if you marry one woman, you're going to have trouble because it's going to be between you and her. If you marry two of them, you're still going to have trouble because they're going to fight each other.
Mm-hmm.
If you marry three of them, two of them are going to gang up on one, so it doesn't work. If you marry four of them, they will tend to fight. But five, if you marry five, they'll make so much damage that they have to clean up. They'll get along great.
Okay.
And you have one that'll be sort of a neutral judge. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't make this up.
Terrible.
Yeah. We don't understand that. But I have to say there's probably some logic to that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I said, I'm not promoting anything here, but I can see where it does make a lot of sense. So now we know where we are. 26. It's 7 o'clock. Any questions on this? We went through a lot.
Mhm.
I'm 74, 73, and I got to marry 4 more women.
Well, you and I are in the same boat. I'm not going anywhere near that one.
Actually,
I'm
I
just
had
gonna
a
stay where
friend-
I'm at.
And she said she wouldn't mind if the man had 2 wives and he could go with one for a couple of weeks and she'd have a break, then he could come back. And she'd be glad
Oh,
to see him
yes.
back. And after a couple of weeks, he could go away again.
Right. I've read that in some books, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't like that logic, but I guess it works somehow.
That was from the woman's point of view, like
Yeah,
I guess it's
exactly.
Oh.
Well, it's really true when you get into this. It's funny watching it because one scene really came to mind, and I think about this all the time to prove it. My grandfather, his name was Dolis, and he always thought they were making him a rough time that he was Italian. I don't know, he didn't like Italians, so I'm not sure why. He was French. So. We got to go back and we found out, yes, it's a very important French name. It's one of these names that went back German, Italian, French, and all between Italian to French. But he always, because of his nose, and I think, and my sister told, I think my mom told me this, that when Grandpa was dead, my grandma looked into the coffin, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dottie, said, Louis, you really do look like an Dago. And she'd never say that when he was alive. And I'm thinking, now wait, what happened here? What's going on here?
Do we have to go potty? I'm not one of them.
Do you remember that, Donnie?
Oh, definitely. I was standing right next to her when she said it.
Yeah, I kind of thought so. That's why I asked.
I have since found out that Dolis can also be an Italian name,
Oh, definitely. Yeah. That's what they said in Quebec.
but he did not like being called Italian at all.
Oh, no, no.
Well, he was French Canadian, huh?
And what we found out when we got to Quebec, we were talking about this, I mentioned it, and the guy says, well, Dolis, that's a big name up here. That's probably one of the ones that went down to New Orleans originally. He said, so, there's 14 acres up here you can have. They were trying to get Rosalie. It's the only place we've ever been where they wanted us to move. We could have had 14 acres and they wanted Rosalie to open up a Creole restaurant.
Yeah. I let the dog out. See you next week. Come on, baby.
We've had these weird opportunities,
Goodbye.
But it's interesting as you go through this, because you're reading about David's life, but the role between husband and wife is interesting. Michael is going to help David, and then she's going to hate David. And you see that so many times.
Well, when did it come about that you were only supposed to have one husband and one wife? Is that like New Testament, or did that happen later on?
Now, where did that come about? Do you know? Now, just kind of think about it.
I noticed the marriage at Cain, but I don't know if that's when it came about.
No, all the way to the beginning.
Oh, Adam.
It was all the way to the beginning. That what God said to Adam is, you shouldn't be alone. So he didn't create a separate woman. He created a woman from Adam's rib. So she was part, and this comes from man. And this is where from the beginning was also supposed to be like that. But somewhere along, and it doesn't really see, the first one to do that was Cain. And then, but Jesus, remember what Christ said, when he's dealing with this, one man and one woman, not multiple, that Lord met you because of your sinfulness. The Lord let you do that, allowed you to do that. So from the very beginning, it was supposed to be 1-1.
But I don't know which book when they started writing. We have the Ten Commandments, but they started with all the laws that proceeded from that. That they talked about, like adultery is a sin. Did they never ever say don't marry many wives? So it just they never addressed it. They just let it happen.
It's not that they never addressed it. It's just that the men decided and the women decided they were going to do it. And so they ended up doing it, and then we're faced with the fact. I mean, when you look at certain things right now, homosexuality, where it's at right now, the problems with prostitution, abortion, where you see that at and go, well, wait a minute. This is, we do it. And God steps in sometimes and says, okay, now with something like abortion, that's never going to go on. That's never going to go over. But this whole thing with more than one wife, because Jacob, Leah, and Rachel. And the interesting side of that, Rachel's buried on the side of the road, this is when he first loved. And Leah is in with the family and with Jacob. So it means that the relationship with Leah was a lot better than what it was with Rachel.
Wasn't it,
So from the beginning. What?
wasn't it Solomon that had 700 wives?
Yeah. What was it, 500 wives or something like that, and 1,500 concubines? And if you look at the problem, see, one of the things we do, we hold Solomon up. He was extremely wise, but what I think we miss, I'm pretty sure, and I'm positive about this part of it, is that the wealth that we get allows us to purchase the things we usually had to fight for or struggle for. And as a result, we get a whole different perspective of who we are and what life is actually all about. And so when you have somebody like Solomon with all the power he's got, the only thing, this is the one thing I've dealt with when you look at Solomon's works. The first one you have is Song of Songs, where Solomon finally finds somebody he loves. Proverbs was written for Rehoboam to teach him a lesson. When you get into this, Aristotle wrote the Nicomachean Ethics for his son Nicomachus to teach him how to live. And if you go, so many men wrote books for their sons to try to help them and understand. And a lot of the sons never did. And this is what happens again with Solomon. And so, but then you get to Ecclesiastes. And Ecclesiastes, you find Solomon envious of a tenant farmer right outside the walls of Jerusalem. Because when he gets out and he looks out, he's over everything. And he sees the guy with his kids and his wife, and he's very content and not very wealthy. And he says, oh, if I could be like him. But he is then brought back. Solomon then comes back. And you watch Rehoboam right after that split the whole kingdom and destroy David's world. So it's a lot of it, if we sit back, there's important things to do in life. One of them, and this is the hardest thing, thinking about who we are and what we're supposed to do, reflecting on our actions. And we don't. Most people do not do that. You know, I just had to do that in my own way, and it really helped out a lot. I have the surround system, and I never could work it. It wasn't working right. And so I had called up one guy at with the receiver. He was able to set it up. I never understood what he did, but he set it up. And now I like the British music. And all of a sudden the British went off and I couldn't get it. And I was calling up other people to try to find out if I could get it on, particularly with the Morans, at least the receiver, the people who make it. They couldn't figure it out. So I decided, well, the thing I got to do, I got to figure it out. I got to solve this. So I sat down and really began thinking about it, reading directions and working through this and working through that and making mistakes here and making mistakes there. It took me about 2 days to work through it. But then finally the pieces came together. Wait a minute, there it is. And now it's working like it should have been working. I've got things I didn't know I had. It's just, and it's not bragging I'm talking about. It just says, as we begin to look at our actions and think about them, then we think whether we've done something wrong and we can repent. But if not, we go on forward. If we don't know, you turn to the Lord and begin. And it's amazing how he will help you through it. And this is what you see David doing all the time here. See, we're doing something different with Samuel. And because as we went through Judges showed us how people act and what God does there. And you're sort of watching it as a show. With David, you're allowed to get into the picture. It begins in Judges. You know, as you get to Judges, toward the end, you watch what's going on. And you begin to know the people a little bit. And you watch particularly when Benjamin comes along and how the Lord destroys the tribe of Benjamin. And if you're thinking about, well, wait a minute, this is proof that God wasn't genocide. Because what he's doing is punishing the people, and they're punishing themselves by what the decisions they're making and what they're doing. Because they want to continue to sin. And so you watch, if you follow that, you begin to see, wait, this is a little more, there's more to this. And now you're getting into Samuel with David. And you're watching first with Samuel and Hannah. And then this gradual progression, David comes in, the problems between David and Saul. Now Saul is about to pass out of this, but you see how God resolved it. But he resolved, David, by following what the Lord wanted, actually resolved the problem. We tend to participate in the problem, accept the problem, without actually dealing with it. Where David comes back and says, okay, this is what I have to do. God. The Lord has anointed me, but he will make me king when he wants me to be king. That's his man. He's got to handle it. And the same thing happens with David. And when Abigail comes to David, David was going to mop up on Nabal and everything he had. But Abigail came, and you watch David is thrown back into the situation that he was with Saul. And God takes Nabal out of the picture totally. And now, since Abigail's all by herself in this area, which is this is a wilderness, you know, David's not going to leave her out there. He then brings her into his house. And there's another woman he's done the same thing with, brings her in. It's for protection. If one of the things to do, I don't know if you've read, and there's a good place to go with, and even you can see it in a movie, Pride and Prejudice. When you get into the night, we get further back. I mean, nowadays women feel very confident in the world they live, and I'm not knocking that at all. But as you move back, you begin to find out there's a realization of something between the man and the woman. Mainly, the woman has to bear the children. And children are very, very important, and they need help. And the woman has to concentrate on that. This is where she's the one that bears them. I mean, it shouldn't be more obvious than that. But what happens now, we turn away from that. But as you go further back, you find out that, wait a minute, and you see this line that comes out in Pride and Prejudice, where one of the girls that there's a clergyman who's kind of ridiculous guy. He takes and he proposes to one of them, to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth won't have him. But her cousin, so he's got to find a wife. So he goes to her friend, and her friend accepts. And Elizabeth wants to knock her, and make fun of her. And she's, wait, don't knock me. She says, look, I need protection. I need protection. And now I have it. I have my own, with him, I have my own room. I have, as I don't have to worry when I get older, somebody's going to be with me. And this is what they're talking about. You'll see that coming through in a lot of this. I hope that makes sense. And I hope it's not opening up sores on anything as we step through this. But it just helps us and the Lord takes care of us. He really does. You think we could be alone, but we're not. The family is there to help each other. And this is what David's talking about and what you'll see coming up. And as I've gone there, watch what's going to happen. This whole thing is going to play out exactly what I'm talking about right now. It's going to play out exactly what I'm saying right now. David's going to take a different situation. He's going to act differently. The results will be much different. I hope that helps a little bit. Got a question, Anita?
No, it's a completely different world at that time. The sins are the same, but the way of living was very different. And I can see, but even today there are women, and I won't say, and this is not judgmental, but a lot of times a woman may marry for protection too.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, and you can't fault it. It's hard for comfort and protection. It's
now.
and actually, I would think now, I know at my age, and maybe what Dottie was, being single women, it would have been hard to be single women, say at the turn of the century. I don't know what. I guess you just kind of stay home and be the spinster. That's it. So, and I know a lot of it you may fault that women are too aggressive or too this or that, but I'm very thankful that I was able to get a job that I could support myself,
Right.
and make my way. That might not have been in 1920. I can remember my grandmother telling me a story. I guess it was during the war years when she got to be a telephone operator. And I think it was the first time she was ever paid for doing work. She was one of 8 children, the oldest girl of only 2 girls. And she told me a story. And she said, and one time they had to work really late and they sent her home in a cab. And to her, that was like an honor, that they thought enough of her to send her home in a cab. And you start thinking, we take so much for granted. That was not there a long time ago.
Yes.
And that job, I think that, like I said, was the only time she ever was paid for doing any work, which, I think she kind of liked it, but that was just temporary for the war. But for her to be that impressed that they sent her home in a cab at night, it was like that she was the value, which was kind of nice.
And they need that. One thing to think about, and this may put a little different. We look at our life now and compare it back in history, and we go, it's so different now. What if the life and the problems are exactly the same, But the technology that we have and the material things that we have changed it such that we don't see it the same way. But when we begin to see it the same way, we realize that things really haven't changed that much. I don't know if that makes sense, you know? But if you watch it, if you're reading everything we've read, you see the same thing going on nowadays. Exactly the same thing going on. But it looks different from our perspective because our culture is so different.
I know we always say, you know, we want more, we want this and that. And you think even the richest king didn't have air conditioning, you know, and here we
Right.
sit here with air conditioning. So like, but to us, we might not think that that's you know, but we should have more because other people have more. But we have a lot of things that, you know, weren't even in existence. You know, I would have a hard time giving up air conditioning. You know, I might say about, you know, the environment and all, but it's like if it came down to me giving up air conditioning, I'd be hard pressed to give it up, no
I
matter what.
understand
You know,
that.
like you could save the world if you gave up air conditioning. It's like, well, I don't know. The world might just have to go downhill.
Well,
So it is a different world. We have riches in different ways.
the situation back then was they never had air conditioning, so they didn't know.
I
Right.
know.
It didn't
But I
matter.
also
You know,
remember being really hot too.
They had slaves, big fans, you know.
And you go lay down in the St. Augustine grass because it's so cool,
Yeah.
and then chinch bugs bite you. So it's like, you know,
You know, one
yeah.
of the things, if you get into history, it's surprising what they did have. You know, most people don't realize they're finding it now. They don't know exactly how the Greeks had computers. They don't know exactly how they worked, but they know they were computers. And the other thing was that when you look at the Romans, you know, when you look at, you know, these bathtubs we see on legs all the time, those are models from the Romans. When you get into that, they used to paint on it Paulus's pipes. You know, and if you look at a Roman bathroom, and I have a picture of one which blew my mind, I still got to go back and look at it. It looks exactly like a bathroom you would have seen in the 30s here. Exactly. Even a flush toilet. So when you get into their world and begin to see it's a lot different, we don't realize what they had. Air conditioning they didn't have, automobiles they didn't have, you know, none of that, you know. But they were all working at it, trying to fly. And if you look at some of the things, I have a book, I just found it, and I thought, wow, I don't know where I got it down here a long time ago when at the museum. But Leonardo da Vinci, some of the things he invented, machine guns, tanks, in the Middle Ages, you know. So, okay, anything else? Oh, wow, we're 20 minutes over. Okay, let us close with prayer. Again, Heavenly Father, as we come before your throne of grace, you know, help us to realize, you know, it helps us to realize our own insignificance. Because if we realize our own insignificance, we realize how significant you actually are. And maybe that begins to help us begin to realize the role you play, the major role you play in our lives. As we go through David, we'll see that happening. As we go through the Bible, we'll see it happening. We'll also see as we take on our own ideals and ideas, you know, how it turns out not the way we expected it to. But if we rely on you, it's amazing how it turns out. Teach us that truth and help us to find joy and peace in believing and in this life you've given us. In your Son's name, Father, we offer all of these prayers in true humility and understanding of our insignificance. We pray. Amen.
Have a good week.
Yeah.
Right.
You too.
Maybe we'll get, well, y'all are not getting the rain on the North Shore like we are here. I mean, every day. It's not a good time to have your passenger window not go up. Let's put it like that. But hopefully we'll have a drier week, and if you need rain, hopefully you get the rain.
Boy, do we need
Um,
rain, but we're about to get it, I think. That's what they're saying. It's coming probably Thursday with this low that's building up in the Gulf.
Well, we'll give you ours because we've got plenty.
Golf, you're going to get
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
night.
Good night.
That's why your plants do so well, though.
Night.
Actually, I think my
Have a
tomatoes
good
got a
one.
little too much. They kind of
Oh.
start that split. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I always,
well, I'll keep you one more time. You're showing these dry pictures of Israel, and I did get the chance. Pastor Wiedehoff took a small group there, and
Yeah.
we started out in Jerusalem, and then went down to Masada and along that, and came back up. Then we headed towards Galilee, and it got greener. And we're sitting in this little bitty bus, thinking, "Oh, look how lush!" And suddenly I thought, "What am I talking about? In Louisiana, this wouldn't even come up to being lush." But the difference in a very short 100, maybe, I don't know, 200 miles at the most, the dramatic difference in the land
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
huge. But it was strange that we were so, oh, look how green. And it's like, this isn't that green from where we came from, but having that dry experience,
Yeah.
it was a big difference. So on that, I'll leave you and let you get about your work.
Okay. Have a
Okay,
good one.
good
See you
night.
all